much is an hour of your time worth? Whether you're a realtor, lawyer, accountant, or even a content creator, Stamps.com gives you the ability to focus your time on what you do best, not on tedious mailing and shipping tasks. Print stamps, shipping labels, or certified mail forms in seconds. More than 4 million customers have relied on Stamps.com to make their lives easier. Go to Stamps.com/audio for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/audio.
1/3 of all murder cases in America remain open.
He had told me that if I opened my eyes, he would slit my throat.
Each one is called a cold case.
The DNA evidence taken from the victim was a match. The Linden rapist was at it again.
Based on the hit A&E television program.
A phone call is placed, one that changes a family's life forever.
Cold Case Files, the podcast.
You could see the fire in his eyes. He screamed at me, "You want it? Get your tape recorder out."
Get new episodes of Cold Case Files every Tuesday on Podcast One, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 254 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing okay, man. How about you?
I'm hanging in there.
Yeah?
You know, I'm still glued to the news, watching this war in the Ukraine. I'm still sick over it, man.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking what these people are going through. Now, at the same time, there are a lot of great humanitarian stories that are coming through. I mean, the people in Poland are doing amazing things with helping out some of the folks fleeing from Ukraine. I just hope it can come to a peaceful resolution soon. Gibbs, let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Nicole Larimer.
Hey, Nicole.
Kevin Francis.
Hey, Francis.
Stephanie Lynn Kovac.
Hey, Kovac.
Stephen Moores.
Hey, Stephen.
Chris Warner.
There's Warner.
Candace Bohannon.
Hey, Candace.
Kat.
What's up, Kat?
Carrie DeSormo.
DeSormo.
Katerina Bells.
Hey, Katerina.
Caradonna Dharmasena.
Ooh, thank you, Dharmasena.
Kaylin Parks.
What's up, Parks?
Vanessa Curry.
Hey, Vanessa.
Selena Sizemore.
Hey, Selena.
And last but not least, Lisa Smisky.
Well, thank you, Smithsky.
And if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Tarnia and Ange.
Hey, thank you, Tarnia and Ange.
We also had some PayPal donations from Lisa Lehman.
That's awesome.
Judy Larson.
Hey, thank you.
And Jill Sutter.
Oh, man, amazing.
So speaking of Patreon, Gibbs, we had a merch winner for February, and that was Walker Mock. We talked about this on TCAP, but you know, I had a really interesting email conversation with Walker. We went back and forth. He wanted me to mention his father, Buddy Mock, who passed away last year. You know, Walker said that it was the podcast that really helped him get through what was, you know, obviously a very difficult time in his life.
Yeah.
And those type of words, those types of sentiments really mean a lot to you and me. Makes us feel good.
They do. Thank you.
That we can help people in any way. Gibbs, right now on True Crime All the Time, we have an episode out on the giggling granny killer, Nanny Doss. And, you know, we're going back to the 50s and even earlier in this case, but it's a fascinating one. I mean, this was a woman who is suspected and thought to have killed a large number of people, some husbands in what you would call like a Lonely Hearts type scheme, but also a large number of her own family members.
Yeah. Yeah. She had no limits.
No, she absolutely did not. All right, Gibbs, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
Today, we're talking about the disappearance of Sofia Juarez. In early 2003, 4-year-old Sofia disappeared from Kennewick in the southeastern part of Washington state, where she lived with her large extended family. Sofia was last seen by her mother just before she left the house one evening to go to the store with her grandmother's boyfriend. But Sofia never made it to the store, and she never came back home. The first her family knew of her disappearance was when her grandmother's boyfriend arrived home without Sofia. Sofia's case was the first time the Amber Alert system was used in Washington state. Investigators deployed every resource they could to help find her. The local and state police, the FBI, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children combined their efforts to locate Sofia. But Sofia remains missing to this day. But dedicated investigators are committed to finding out what happened to her. Some of the most typical suspects in these types of cases were scrutinized. But in 2021, information was relayed to the public, which detectives hope can bring them closer to answers. Sofia Juarez was born on February 5th, 1998, to her teen mother, Maria. Sofia never met her biological father, Andres Gutierrez. He wasn't involved in her life, didn't have any contact with Maria's family, and didn't have a permanent address in Washington. The Juarez family was originally from Mexico, but settled in Kennewick. Sofia and her 20-year-old mother lived with Maria's mother, Ignacia, and Ignacia's boyfriend, Jose Lopez Torres. Also living at the home were Ignacia's 6 other kids, who were Sofia's aunts and uncles. And there was a pretty big range here. In Ignacia's 6 kids, some were small children, some were teenagers. So I think what's important here, Gibbs, is like many multi-generational households, there were a lot of people living under one roof. According to the Charlie Project, Sofia was a loving, happy, and energetic little girl. She enjoyed playing with her Barbie dolls, putting on makeup, playing with the neighborhood kids, watching cartoons, and coloring. Her favorite food was Burger King. Okay, I think you could say that about a lot of little girls. Those very same things.
Sure.
Right? Playing with Barbie dolls. Kids love putting on makeup. Who doesn't like watching cartoons? I still watch cartoons at my age.
Yeah.
And coloring.
And she loved Burger King.
Okay, I'm not going to go that far. I don't hate it, but it's not my favorite food.
Yeah, that will vary depending on the child.
And person, and by age.
Yes.
I will say, as a kid growing up, I loved McDonald's. That was my favorite. Now, I feel like it was more of a special occasion treat when I was a kid, as opposed to the staple that many people use it as today.
Right.
We don't eat a lot of McDonald's, but man, there was nothing better, I remember as a kid, than a quarter pounder. Also, I think the fries were better back in the day because they used a less healthy version of oil to cook them in. Between 8:15 and 9:15 p.m. on February 4th, 2003, Sofia played in her bedroom with a couple of her uncles. And it's kind of strange, right? When you say it that way, you think of an uncle most times as an older person. But these were kids and teenagers, older than her probably, but not that much older.
Right.
She was excited, looking forward to the next day because it was her 5th birthday. Her mom, Maria, was home at the time, as was her grandmother's boyfriend, Jose Torres. Torres had planned to take a short drive to a nearby convenience store about 5 blocks away from the family home on the 100 block of East 15th Avenue. He asked if any of the kids wanted to come along for the car ride. As far as Torres knew, none of the kids were interested, so he headed off alone. At some point, not long afterwards, Sofia left her bedroom and told Maria she was going to the store. She asked her mom for $1 to buy some candy. What Maria didn't know was that Torres had already driven away. So she watched Sofia walk out of the room, and she heard her close the front door behind her, assuming Sofia was in the company of Jose Torres. This was the last time Maria saw her daughter. Gibbs, this was February in Washington State, right? It was cold. The temperature outside was said to have been around 35 degrees.
Close to freezing.
Yeah, very close. But Sofia had left the house without a coat.
That's dangerous for anybody, but a child without a coat during that type of temperature is not good.
And you have to wonder, why did she leave the house without a coat? Was it because she thought she was going to be getting, in a car, she would be warm? My kids do that all the time. Now, they're older, right, than Sofia was then, but, it can be freezing out. And if they know they only have to walk to the car and from the car to, let's say, a store, they won't take a coat. So we mentioned it, Gibbs. Torres had already driven away. Maria didn't know this. And obviously, Torres couldn't have known that, Sofia had changed her mind about wanting to go to the store. Torres stopped to get some gas before arriving at the convenience store alone. He bought some milk before he used the payphone to call family in Mexico. He returned home around 9:45 p.m. According to the Charlie Project, when Torres returned home alone, Maria quickly started to panic when Torres said that Sofia was not with him. He said he hadn't seen Sofia at all since leaving the house. Maria frantically searched the house and yard before calling the police about 45 minutes later. Police showed up pretty quickly. It was reported that they were at the Juarez home within minutes of the call. Maria told officers Sofia would never have gone off with a stranger on her own because she was quite shy. If Sofia was to go with someone who wasn't her mother, Maria said it would only have been with someone Sofia knew or trusted. I think, right off the bat, Gibbs, at this point, there were grave concerns for Sofia's safety. Obviously it was dark out, right? We talked about the timing. We also talked about how cold it was. This was winter. 35 degrees.
Cold, dark, scary for a 4-year-old.
Well, absolutely, but also very scary for Maria, right? That panic sets in very quickly. You and I have talked about it a number of times. Anything having to do with your child, especially a very young child, when you find out that things are not the way you thought they were, right? You thought she was with Torres. He comes home, no Sofia, boom. Right away, you're in full-blown panic mode.
Yeah.
And everything has to start racing through your mind, right? Did she wander off? Is she lost? Or did she meet some type of bad person intent on doing bad things? Even without all of that, you have to be scared because this little girl is at risk just because of the weather. But again, even taking these factors into account, along with her age, police felt it was extremely unlikely that she had become distracted and wandered away from the house, or that she'd been hurt in an accident. Sofia wasn't the sort of child whose curiosity overrode her fear, and she didn't like venturing outside at night. Maria had already said that. Right? She wouldn't go off with someone she didn't know.
Right. She's pretty much a safe type of child.
Yeah. And or scared.
Yeah. Or scared.
And sometimes fear causes you to be safe. It causes you not to do things that could potentially put yourself at risk. According to the Tri-State Herald, hundreds of police officers and firefighters conducted a door-to-door search at every home within a 3-mile radius of the Juarez home. Searchers and Sofia's family left no stone unturned. They looked inside cars. They scoured local parks, playgrounds, vacant lots, trash cans, and dumpsters. Neighborhood schools and businesses were also included on the search list. And this is what you want to hear, right? Police show up quickly. They react very quickly. We don't hear that in every single case. Now, we are talking about a 4-year-old here. And I do think in some cases, a missing 4-year-old is treated much differently than a 16, 17-year-old, and especially like a 19-year-old. 4-year-olds just shouldn't be leaving the house on their own, right? Everyone knows that. But they're looking everywhere. Kennewick PD wasted no time getting the FBI involved. Gibbs, they were on the scene within an hour. And that's another thing that I like to see. I really like it when police call in all available assets.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you?
It's what you should do.
It's what you should do, but we see in so many cases where, whether it's territorial, turf war type stuff, the local police don't want help. They don't want to ask for help because maybe they believe they've got it. They want to be the ones to either solve a crime or find a missing person. My thought is, don't be so proud. Call in anyone and everyone. That's how you get things done.
Right.
But as the hours passed, it became more apparent to police that Sofia hadn't gotten lost. She hadn't been involved in an accident. Law enforcement quickly determined that she had been abducted, and they arranged for news of her disappearance to be front and center that night with local and major media outlets. Again, I can't say enough about, what this police department is doing.
Everybody's hands on.
Well, and I feel like they're doing everything so quickly. They're not waiting around. They're jumping into action at every step of the way.
And the community jumped into action as well.
Yeah, the people of Kennewick really came together to help. They headed out into the dark winter with local police to conduct thorough shoulder-to-shoulder quadrant searches. Investigators also alerted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Again, they're doing everything they should be doing at this moment.
Yeah, and at this moment, I think is the key. Some of these things often take a while to happen in cases. This is like, they're doing everything bang, 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 bang,
right,
as quickly as they can. I want to go back to the people of Kennewick, these shoulder to shoulder kind of quadrant searches. It's kind of often what you see on television. People are either holding hands, they have their arms locked, and, somebody is coordinating it.
Sure.
They've marked off these areas into grids, and they're making sure that each one of these grids gets searched, and they're walking so closely together that there's no way anything could be missed.
Right. That's the way to do it.
We mentioned it up front, but Sofia's disappearance was the first time Washington's Office of Emergency Management issued an Amber Alert. I think most people are aware of the Amber Alert system, right? It's an emergency response system that is activated to make communities immediately aware of cases of child abduction. The system was developed in 1996 following the abduction and murder of 9-year-old Amber Hagerman in Texas. And we profiled Amber's case, Gibbs, on an episode of Unsolved. These alerts are not activated lightly. Certain criteria need to be satisfied. As per the alert protocol, Sofia's details were entered into the Washington State and National Crime Information Center database, and she was classified as a missing endangered person. Investigators took steps to send teletypes to law enforcement agencies across the Pacific Northwest, the West Coast, and as far as Nevada, Alaska, and even to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And Gibbs, this Amber Alert system has been a game changer.
Sure has.
Now, does it prevent abductions? No. Has it helped locate a lot of missing children? I believe it has.
Yeah, I think so too.
A lot of times I'll get alerts on my iPhone.
Yeah.
About things that have occurred in my area. If you think about it, before the Amber Alert system, okay, let's say a child goes missing in the morning. Well, maybe you would find out about it on the evening news, your local evening news. But by that time, what's happened? You've passed a lot of cars.
Yeah.
You've passed a lot of people. Did you see the car that the person is thought to be driving? Well, now all of a sudden you're in your car, you get an alert. You're walking down the street, you get an alert. It's a big deal.
Sure it is. You might see that car. You might recognize that person.
Well, you're not going to see it sitting on your couch watching the evening news. Now, you might remember that you saw the car, but that could be 4, 5, 6, 7 hours earlier. You could have been at lunch. It could have been on your drive into work in the morning. Who knows where that car is now? All right, Gibbs, can we talk about Simply Safe for a minute? There's a reason why so many respected publications have ranked Simply Safe as the best home security of 2021. U.S. News has already ranked it the best home security of 2022. I've been using Simply Safe for over 4 years now, and there are so many things to like about Simply Safe. I love the fact that it's wireless. I love the fact that it's completely customizable. You can set the whole thing up in about 30 minutes. Pick which sensors you want. Door, window. I have a water sensor in my basement. And don't forget about the cameras. Simply Safe makes some of the most amazing cameras, and you can view everything through their app. It has everything I want. Simply Safe protects your whole home around the clock 24/7. Every door, window, and room. It's also backed by the best 24/7 professional monitoring in the business. Simply Safe is less than $1 a day, and it's extremely simple to use. There's never a long-term contract. You can customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/TCAT. Go today and claim a free indoor security camera plus 20% off with interactive monitoring. Go to simplysafe.com/TCAT, TCAT. True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive. What's one thing you'd purchase with a little extra savings? A weighted blanket, a smart speaker, that new self-care trend you keep hearing about. Well, Progressive wants to make sure you're getting what you want by helping you save money on car insurance. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average. And customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. Discounts like having multiple vehicles on your policy. Progressive offers outstanding coverage and award-winning claim service. Day or night, they have customer support 24/7, 365 days a year. When you need them most, they're at their best. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com and see why 4 out of 5 new auto customers recommend Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations. The morning after Sofia's disappearance, a central incident management team was set up to oversee the massive search operation. And over the next 3 days, more than 500 police officers, FBI agents, dive and rescue personnel, and civilian volunteers searched high and low for Sofia. Police helicopters conducted aerial searches of waterways and rural areas using thermal imaging and night vision cameras. According to KIMA News, both sheriff patrol boats and the Coast Guard searched rivers in the Tri-Cities area. Canine cadaver, search and rescue, and scent dog teams were deployed. They even had teams of officers who ventured into Kennewick sewers looking for any trace of Sofia.
I mean, I can't think of anything they're not doing at this point.
Yeah, that was my thought exactly. You know, you and I often have to be critical of police failures or what are viewed by many as police failures in an investigation. And I feel like they are going all out, timing wise and resource wise. But when 36 hours passed without Sofia being located, her Amber Alert was canceled. We already mentioned, Gibbs, that Sofia's father wasn't involved in her life. But even at, this early stage, According to the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, police had already eliminated him as a suspect. Apparently, he took a polygraph test and was fully cooperative with the investigation. Sofia's maternal grandfather, Jose Juarez, wasn't living with the family at the time, but he joined them in their efforts to find Sofia. But obviously, Gibbs, everyone in Sofia's life had to be questioned and eliminated as part of the process.
Yeah, because typically that's who they find out abduct these little kids, right? Somebody close to the family.
Yeah, that's right. I believe the statistics prove or bear out that most child abductions are committed by family members. Now, one thing that's worth pointing out is that police came out and said they had no concerns about Maria's delay in contacting them on the night in question.
Yeah, I know it was 45 minutes, but by the time you look through the house and run around the house and search high and low and all that, that time goes by very quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, she had tried her best to ensure Sofia wasn't hiding somewhere before she contacted law enforcement. I think I said, she would be panicked, and I think any parent would, but at the same time, 4-year-olds like to hide. So I could understand kind of wanting to check the house real quick before making that kind of big call to police to start everything in motion. Now, if you said she waited 3 hours and 45 minutes, okay, that would be a different story. Flyers went out to Tri-City schools and businesses appealing for any information on Sofia's whereabouts. A $5,000 reward was announced by the Fraternal Order of Police, in addition to a $1,000 reward offered by Crime Stoppers. According to CNN, police described the van seen in the area at the time. It was a light blue, silver, or gray, late 70s to early 80s model, full-sized panel van with no side windows. According to NBC, the van could have looked like one used by contractors or painters. However, there's nothing to suggest it was solely a contractor or painter's van.
Yeah, but they're painting the picture of it. I get it.
Yeah, this is what it's going to look like. You see these vans a lot. Now, it's also, kind of that term that is thrown around a lot, a windowless van.
Right.
Okay. My kids do not like to see windowless vans. They think something hinky is going on.
Yeah.
Now, if you got a big logo on the side of it, that's one thing.
Right.
But if you're just driving around in a windowless van, you might get a second look.
You might, especially if you do have a logo on it that says free candy.
Well, then you're going to have parents running out of their house and stopping you in the middle of the street. The FBI was coordinating a central information system to record every tip and piece of information coming in to assist with the investigation. And again, I go back to my earlier statement. This is why you bring other agencies in.
Absolutely. They have the knowledge. They have the expertise.
And the technology that you probably don't have. We already talked about the fact that the public answered the call to action, right? They'd already helped in the searches, but then they started calling in tips. It was reported that police were inundated with over 800 tips. That's a big number.
That's a big number to work, but you want as many tips as you can get because one of those tips could be the one that solves the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Among these, according to NBC, were 24 tips in relation to the van that we talked about that had been seen by a witness. According to KEPR News, one of Sofia's 10-year-old relatives who lived in the Juarez home told police he'd seen her walking down her driveway with a man dressed in a black sweatshirt, black pants, and black shoes. But this lead was later discounted. And I get it. A 10-year-old might not be 100% accurate. Maybe there's a little bit of a fantasy there. Who knows? I don't know why police discounted this. What I will say is if you're a man walking through a neighborhood wearing a black sweatshirt, black pants, and black shoes in the dark, okay, is that just a fashion choice?
Could be.
It could be. Or would some people look at it as though you may be up to no good? You can make the argument either way. There's a lot of people that dress all in black. I'm not saying that means you're about ready to commit a crime, but let's face it. If you're a cat burglar, you're probably dressing up in all black.
Yeah, you're not going to be wearing all white
or neon green
or yellow or yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. NBC reported that a witness saw a girl matching Sofia's description walking along the sidewalk on South Washington Street near East 15th Avenue around the time Sofia would have been there if she would have walked from her house to the convenience store. So to me, Gibbs, this tip is interesting from the standpoint that if it's true, then it places her at a certain location away from her house.
Right.
At least a certain distance, really eliminating the possibility that she was abducted from her home or just outside her home.
Gives them a better starting point.
Yes, if it's true. According to the Tri-City Herald, 4 days after Sofia went missing, on February 8th, police used dog teams to search 3 homes in Kennewick and Burbank. The owner of the Burbank home was Katie Vargas, the mother of convicted triple murderer Jeremy Sagastegui. As reported, Katie refused to cooperate, alleging police were trying to elicit a false confession from her family. 3 days later, on the 11th, police searched another home. They received a report that the male occupant had made a harassing phone call to a stranger. This call was sexually explicit, but even that wasn't the most concerning thing. During the call, the man had made a troubling comment about Sofia's disappearance. But this man was cleared of having any involvement in Sofia's abduction, and he was only charged with telephone harassment. Katie Vargas and her family were also eliminated as persons of interest. Gibbs, I want to go back to this man who made the harassing phone call. Okay, part of that call was sexually explicit.
Right.
You can't do that. But to make a very specific reference to the disappearance of this 4-year-old girl, why? It's a question that you and I ask all the time. Often it's around people calling the family of a missing person and messing with them and saying things that ultimately turn out not to be true. I'm assuming that this was some type of heavy breathing, dirty type of phone call. And then all of a sudden you're going to start talking about this 4-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And her disappearance.
A real sicko, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's really sick, both pieces of it.
Right.
But then to make both references in the same phone call, strange, right?
Very, very strange.
A week after Sofia disappeared, about 300 people participated in a candlelight vigil and peaceful march going from the Juarez home to St. Joseph's Church. By this point, according to the Tri-City Herald, a makeshift memorial outside the house was growing by the day. People were coming by. They were leaving flowers, candles, teddy bears, and cards. And this is always heartbreaking. You see this on TV all the time. I mean, it's amazing that so many good people come forward. They're praying for this girl. They're helping search for this girl. They're buying things and leaving them at this makeshift memorial. But it's also very sad.
Very sad. Devastating.
Searchers found a pair of overalls and girls' shoes in the area, but neither of these was what Sofia had been wearing when she disappeared. 3 weeks after Sofia went missing, her case was featured nationwide on America's Most Wanted, in response to that episode. Further tips came in from as far away as the East Coast.
That's a good show to be on if you want some additional tips. I think.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about it before. America's Most Wanted was big. And to get a case out, a disappearance case out to a national audience, it is a big deal. So we mentioned it, right? The authorities felt as though this was a stranger abduction, right? That was their theory. As part of their investigative strategy, they focused on investigating sex offenders in the Tri-Cities area. It was reported that there were about 150 sex offenders living in Kennewick alone. So, I mean, just based off that, Gibbs, police had their work cut out for them. I think the other thing that it really demonstrates is you never really know, right? Who's living next door to you. Now, there are apps and websites and things now that will kind of show where you live and a map of sex offenders in the area. I use it quite a bit just to see what's going on.
I know you do, but it's not going to be perfect.
No, because there are a lot of times that, I'll look at it and they'll say the person used to live here. Okay. Well, where do they live now? And, if you think about it, it's only as good as the data that they have,
right?
Meaning people have to report their whereabouts, their address, and all that. One of Sofia's close neighbors turned out to be a convicted sex offender, but his investigators looked into his movements and they made their way through the list of other similar offenders in the area. One by one, these men were gradually eliminated. Now, I always find this part kind of fascinating because they never really say, right, how this elimination process went. So how do you eliminate someone? Okay, you can do it through alibi. Now, we know alibis aren't always 100%.
Right.
Obviously, if someone is across the country or in another state and has been, okay, I understand that. I think all we can do is assume that this elimination process, was very detailed. Everything was vetted. I don't know. That part always concerns me a little bit. My big thing is the absence of something. Doesn't mean that someone couldn't have had a hand in something like this. Meaning, okay, they can't find anything on them, but do they have enough to eliminate them?
Exactly. They don't always have that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't have enough to charge anybody or to think that, they did it, but is that enough to say that, okay, we're going to eliminate them? I'm hoping that's not the way it went down. To assist with any physical evidence, Sofia's DNA profile was entered into the FBI's National Combined DNA Index system. As tips continue to come in, almost 150 of them were out-of-area reports, sightings of Sofia. So everything had to be checked.
Sure.
People called in with all sorts of theories. Some claimed that a stranger had taken her. Others suggested maybe someone Sofia knew had taken her to Mexico.
And you're going to get all those theories coming in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was also the theory that she'd accidentally been killed by someone driving a vehicle, and maybe this person got scared and disposed of her body. This actually became one of the more common theories.
Yeah.
And probably was one of the most persistent rumors in this case.
And that was also a rumor in a high-profile case here in Dayton with Erica Baker.
Well, I can see how people could theorize that. You have a 4-year-old girl walking alone in the dark. Could somebody accidentally strike her? Could she have walked out in the street? Someone didn't have time to react, but they got very, very scared because they thought they would go to jail or be prosecuted or something like that. You would hope that wouldn't happen, that a person wouldn't react that way,
right,
if they truly accidentally hit a kid. But people panic sometimes. and do things to try to cover it up. Members of the public called in over 200 tips on this theory alone, reporting that Sofia had been struck by a vehicle driven by someone involved in the local drug scene, and she had been killed instantly, or that she'd been injured and then taken to a remote location where she was murdered and buried. As multiple persons of interest were identified, investigators obtained warrants to acquire telephone records, place taps on phone lines, and search homes and vehicles. All right, Gibbs, let's take our last break. For fans of true crime podcasts, the Generation Y podcast is essential listening. Hosts Aaron and Justin cover cases from all angles. They break down theories, do deep dives into forensic evidence, and they discuss their opinions on the most perplexing cases. In a recent episode, Aaron and Justin investigate the case of Charles Cohen. In 1988, Charles murdered both of his parents in their home in Hockessin, Delaware. While he was on the run, many speculated that this double homicide had to have been a crime of passion or committed during a fit of rage. But when he was finally apprehended, Charles made it clear that his murderous rampage was more sinister and premeditated than anyone expected. Gibbs, you and I have known Aaron and Justin for many years now. We love their work. We love the way they go about putting out their podcasts. And we believe our listeners will too. Listen to Generation Y podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or you can listen ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app. Hey folks, can we talk about health for a minute? Because there's nothing more important than taking care of yourself. Because if you're not feeling your best, you can't be your best. Sambucol helps you feel your best by supporting your immune system with premium black elderberry. Sambucol is the original black elderberry brand, so I know I'm getting immune support I can trust. I use Sambucol because I don't have time to miss work when I'm not feeling my best. These podcasts have to go out. So I take 1 or 2 Sambucol gummies every morning to help make sure I can keep doing what I need to do. And I love these gummies because they taste so good. They're like a little morning treat. I take them with my coffee to get my day started off right. They also have a ton of other formats to choose from, including syrups, drink powders, tablets, capsules, and more. They also have products for kids and babies as well. You can help support your entire family's immune systems with Sambucol. Get 15% off your next order of $9.99 or more at sambucolusa.com. Use code TCAT. That's 15% off your next order of $9.99 or more with the code TCAT. Sofia's disappearance touched the hearts of not only ordinary members of the Kennewick community, but some with a public profile. According to the Tri-City Herald, 2.5 weeks into the search for Sofia, NASCAR driver and former Kennewick resident Damon Lusk announced he would be foregoing sponsorship revenue in an upcoming Busch Series race in Las Vegas, doing his part to raise national awareness for Sofia. At the race, Lusk had a large photo of the missing girl on display on the trunk of his car. This is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
I mean, you think about how much a NASCAR driver makes for, let's just say, one race, and you're saying, to hell with the sponsorship money.
Right.
I'm going to put this girl's photo on my car.
It's more important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
And getting that exposure out there. I mean, that's a big race.
It is a big race. A lot of people watch NASCAR. In May 2003, there was an updated announcement about the vehicle police were searching for. It was a mid-90s model, full-size, faded orange van with a license plate with a double J in the number. The driver was said to be between 35 and 45 years old, was a white male with a thick blonde beard. According to the Charlie Project, a witness saw the van in the area around the time of Sofia's disappearance. Police didn't know if the van had any connection to the case, but of course they wanted to find this driver. They were committed to chasing down every lead. Kennewick Police Chief Mark Harden told the Seattle Times, "Everyone and no one is a person of interest." That's a very interesting statement. Basically telling me we don't have anybody,
right?
But we're looking at everyone.
So you're all are possible suspects.
except for the people that they eliminated.
Yeah.
In August 2006, investigators thought that they had a new lead. According to the Associated Press, a farmer driving down a field access road south of Ritzville, about an hour's drive north of Kennewick, saw a patch of tall weeds that a fire had destroyed. It struck him as very unusual, and when he looked closer, he found bone fragments. This field had been searched twice since Sofia's disappearance. So I think one question that some people asked was, okay, since it had been searched multiple times, could someone have decided that this was the time to dump her body in an attempt to dispose of her remains? They've already searched it twice. Why would they go back?
So now we can finally dispose of the body because never going to be found, is what maybe the suspect was thinking.
Some news reports at the time mentioned the discovery of a skull, but it's not really clear, Gibbs, whether this is actually the case. The FBI did send a team out to search a 100-acre area surrounding the field, but nothing further was recovered. The bones were sent off for DNA testing. However, analysts couldn't determine their origin. But according to the Seattle Times, in November 2007, after some further testing on the remains, investigators had their answer. Carbon dating conclusively showed the bone fragments were around 600 to 770 years old and belonged to someone of Native American ancestry. So obviously there was no way that they belonged to Sofia.
So we have that solved. Doesn't help our case, though.
No, it doesn't. What it does is it, for me, brings up the question of, how did these bone fragments just kind of all of a sudden surface? Was it because of the fire? 600, 700 years old?
Some old bones there.
That means they had been there for a very long time.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they surface. That seems very strange to me. Around late 2007, early 2008, the Juarez family, including Maria, moved to California. Maria gave birth to a baby boy in mid-2008. However, tragedy struck the Juarez family again. Maria wouldn't live to find out what happened to her daughter. In January 2009, at the age of 26, she died in Sacramento from medical complications, leaving behind her 6-month-old son, according to KEPR News. The Seattle Times reported that back in Kennewick, Maria's ashes were taken to St. Joseph's Church in a procession from the site of her former home where she'd lived with Sofia. And how many times, Gibbs, do we see as we're moving along through a case, multiple tragedies happening to the same family?
And how do families recover from that? Can you recover from that?
Tough to recover from one. Exponentially tougher, I would think, to recover from 2, 3. I mean, we've seen 3, 4 tragedies happen to a single family, while they're still trying to figure out what happened to one of their loved ones. As the years pass without any answers or trace of Sofia, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released digital age-progressed photos of what they believed Sofia would look like. Senior investigators maintained hope that Sofia was still alive. In 2011, one detective told the Seattle Times, "My gut is that she's alive. If she's deceased, we'd have found her remains." Now, I get it. Investigators want to have hope. The family wants to have hope. I don't know if I quite agree with that logic. You think about a stranger abduction and murder. I think oftentimes murderer will figure out a way to dispose of someone's remains so that they will never be found. That same year, police investigated a report of a girl in her early teens living in Long Beach, California, whose Facebook profile was Sofia Juarez. But this lead didn't pan out either. 2 years later, Kennewick PD told NBC there still wasn't any evidence either way, whether Sofia was alive or had been killed. In December 2020, police relaunched the investigation into Sofia's disappearance. This meant undertaking the daunting task of reviewing the 20,000-page case file and re-interviewing everyone possible, especially anyone who lived in Kennewick between South Washington Street and South Cedar Street and between 13th and 16th Avenues from the period of December 2002 to March 2003. Okay, that is a lot of work.
It is.
Going through 20,000 pages of a case file. Then you have to figure out who lived, in these areas way back when, try to track them down. Are they still there? No. Okay, where are they now if they're even still alive? And then we got to go find them and re-interview them, assuming they interviewed all of these people the first time.
Right.
In February 2021, on the 18th anniversary of Sofia's disappearance, her Aunt Victoria told the Tri-City Herald, "We plead with anybody that knows anything, please just come forward and let that light shine in that dark area because this family needs closure. It's been very hard just witnessing the ache and the suffering and the pain that it has taken in this family. We want to know what happened." Victoria's appeal coincided with her niece's pictures being featured on semi-trailer trucks owned by Camway Trucking as part of a campaign called Homeward Bound. The initiative was launched by Washington State Patrol's Missing and Unidentified Persons Unit, focusing on missing people. The semi-trucks cover a lot of ground, Gibbs, if you think about it.
They really do.
Traveling around the Pacific Northwest, across the West Coast, even into Canada and Mexico. To me, this is exactly what needs to happen. Coming up with new ways, to profile these missing individuals doesn't cost much. Okay, yes, you have to get the trucking company to agree to it, but think about the number of miles they drive, the places they go. That's great exposure.
As long as they keep her image out there and never forget, right? Keep the image out there. Keep talking about it. That's what you want. Yeah, it's like when they used to put missing persons on milk cartons.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at was let's just be inventive, right? And I think this was. That same month, a new lead investigator was appointed following the previous lead investigator's retirement. Veteran detective and retired Richland police captain Al Weiner was brought on board to spearhead the investigation going forward. In March 2021, the Kennewick Police Department created a website dedicated to Sofia's case. It described Sofia as a beacon of sunshine who had a bright and innocent life stolen from her. Her family, friends, and community have lived under a dark cloud since she was taken from us. Sofia was and still is loved by all who knew her. The website also makes a special direct appeal to the person or persons involved in Sofia's disappearance, saying, if you were involved, it's important you know that we will not stop until we bring closure for Sofia's family and our community, regardless of how long it takes. Relationships you've had with others change over time. Allegiances that others may have once had to you are now different. They know about your involvement, or at the very least are suspicious that you may be involved. This event has had a marked effect on your life. You have been looking over your shoulder since 2003. You may have trouble sleeping, maintaining employment, and or changed your consumption of alcohol and or drugs. Each tip brings us closer to you. It is time to relieve this heavy burden that you have carried. It's time to help yourself. We encourage you to contact us. And again, I think this is brilliant.
It is brilliant.
It's also something that you and I keep talking about. If anyone else knows about something you've done, okay, well, we're almost 20 years on. Relationships do change over time, right? People fall out of favor with this person or that person. They get mad at each other. Okay, if someone gets upset with you and they know some really dirty stuff about you, you cross them.
Sure. Things are going to come out.
The next thing you know, they're calling in an anonymous tip to police because they're done with you.
Yeah. You're going to do that to me? Watch what I'm going to do to you.
Exactly. So I do think it's a brilliant thing. Number one, to have the website. That's great. But to really hammer home this idea of you've been looking over your shoulder. This is a heavy burden. We're never going to stop coming after you. You might as well give up. Now, is that going to work in many cases? Probably not. I don't know that many people 20 years on are going to see that and say, you know what, that's true. I think it's just time for me to give myself up. I can't live with what I've done. What I think is more likely is that someone else out there knows, and at some point, their reason for protecting a person goes away.
Right.
Within a month of the launch, both the website and the Homeward Bound program elicited new leads into Sofia's disappearance. There's been a lot of attention directed towards particular individuals as potential suspects in the case. We don't know who all these individuals are, beyond one of the Juarez's neighbors who was convicted of a sex crime but was cleared. Now, it's not surprising, Gibbs, that we don't know the identities of all the people that are being investigated. It's an ongoing case. I mean, at this point, as far as we know, there's no physical evidence connecting anyone to Sofia's disappearance, at least to the point where no one has been charged as it relates to their involvement. The Center for Missing and Exploited Children has reaffirmed that Sofia's father is not a suspect. Neither is Jose Torres, her grandmother's boyfriend. According to police, after Torres left the house, Sofia also walked out the door to follow him to the store. But like we said, Torres didn't know this. He drove to the store alone and he returned home alone. Investigators obtained CCTV footage from the convenience store, which corroborated his version of events. And it also showed that Sofia was nowhere in sight. We know that Sofia's father didn't have a relationship with his daughter. He also cooperated with law enforcement. Apparently, Gibbs, his alibi did check out, and he was ruled out as a potential suspect within 48 hours.
Pretty quick.
Now, we don't know what his alibi was. So, again, you have to assume that it was solid, that it was corroborated by police in order for him to be ruled out, eliminated so quickly. You know, that's pretty quick. So it sounds to me like it was so clear cut.
Right. That they had good evidence.
Yes. And that's what we're hoping. Maria, of course, was proven to have been at home the entire time. She didn't follow Sofia out the door, and she didn't leave the house until Jose Torres returned. So I think when you kind of whittle the family away as being involved, it really leans heavily towards the working theory of a stranger abduction.
Yeah, what else could it be?
And we know investigators kind of quickly jumped on this as the most likely scenario. Now, detectives still don't know whether Sofia was murdered or whether, she's being held alive. Some people might say, well, how can she be alive after all this time? Well, Gibbs, we've had some fairly recent cases of people who have been abducted and kept for very long periods of time.
Yeah, and found and returned home.
Yeah. So is it the most likely outcome? I would say no. But can you rule it out? No, I don't think you can. So after all the thousands of tips that have come into this case, it seems to me as though the stranger abduction theory is still the leading theory at this stage in the case.
Yeah, it makes the most sense.
I think it does, even though we did say, right, the majority of people, I believe, the statistics bear this out, are abducted by, someone they know, often a family member, a family friend, It just doesn't seem to be that way in this case. And I think at least as investigators see it. According to CNN, in May 2021, TikTok users in Kennewick contacted local police after a video featuring a young woman was uploaded to the social media app. The woman, who appeared to be in her early 20s, which is the age Sofia would be now, bore a striking resemblance to age-progressed photos of Sofia. In the video, which was apparently shot in the northwestern Mexican city of Culiacan, the young woman, who was interviewed by a TikTok personality, spoke Spanish. She gave her age as 22, said she hated birthdays and had a drug addiction. She went on to say she hoped to talk with her family because she didn't know where she was from and had been told she'd been abducted. So
promising
to the point where Kennewick police began investigating the video. A month later, in June 2021, Kennewick PD announced they'd contacted people claiming to be the woman's relatives. According to NBC, they told police the young woman, who was in a rehabilitation center, was not Sofia, and they asked for privacy over what they called a family matter. But at the time of this recording, my understanding is that police still have not discounted this lead. They're still trying to confirm whether Sofia was the woman in the videos somehow, either through DNA testing, and they definitely are trying to investigate this woman's claims that she's been abducted.
Well, that could be a breakthrough.
It really could. Now, you have people who are claiming to be relatives of this woman coming forward and saying, no, it's not Sofia. It's, this is a member of our family. Okay, maybe.
Or maybe you think she's been a member of your family because she's been with you since she was 4 years old. Maybe you don't know how she came into your family. You just know she's been part of your family.
Well, that could be the case, but I think you also have to at least bring up the possibility that these people know exactly who that woman is.
For sure.
And they have a vested interest in saying it's not Sofia.
Cover up.
To cover something up. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying you have to at least bring that up as a possibility.
And a DNA test would clear that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obviously you can see why police are so interested in this woman, this video, right? I haven't seen the video, but this woman is said to look a lot like the age-progressed photos. She's saying she doesn't know who her family is. She's been told that maybe she was abducted. She's around the right age.
Sure.
Okay. Man, it's something you would really want to check out. But that's not the only recent breakthrough in the case. Police released a new description of both a suspect and a vehicle. The person police are now looking for and focusing on is a light-complexioned Hispanic boy who was around 11 to 14 years old back when Sofia disappeared. This would now make him somewhere around 30 to 33 years old. In 2003, he would have been around 5 foot to 5'2", possibly had big hands for a person his age, and his facial features indicated he was chubby. That's how the police termed it.
Sure.
They also said that he had a baby face with a possible mark on one cheek. He had bangs, and his wavy dark hair was short, and it appeared to be slicked back. Police went on to say a witness who was stopped at a stop sign saw the suspect around 8:30 p.m. on the sidewalk at South Washington Street near East 15th Avenue, approaching a girl who they said looked like Sofia. According to NBC, the suspect led the girl by the hand towards a van, which was occupied and stopped in a nearby street. The witness saw the suspect laughing, but the young girl was crying. I think what's interesting about this is that the witness made their report the day after Sofia disappeared.
That long ago.
But yet this updated suspect description wasn't released until more than 18 years later. That's a very long time.
Too long.
And you have to ask the question of, why that would happen. Police have explained that due to actively investigating other persons of interest and trying to track this suspect down, they purposefully withheld this information from the public.
Yeah, for that long, though, after you knew the show was going to be showcased on America's Most Wanted?
Yeah, I mean, this is a discussion that crops up, right? Police hold things back.
Right.
But at a certain point, after so many years have passed, and I'm not saying 18, I think the number is much, much less. At a certain point, don't you then have to make the decision, okay, our best chance is to now release this.
Yeah.
And have people come forward. I don't know. I've been all in on police efforts in this case. I think this claim is a little dubious.
I agree.
I'm not saying they're lying.
No.
It could be exactly how it happened. If it did happen that way, I'm saying maybe you should have released it a little bit earlier. That's all I'm saying. This new suspect description coincided with an anonymous Kennewick couple offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to the discovery of Sofia's whereabouts. And this couple's interesting. They don't know the Juarez family, didn't know the Juarez family back then. They just want to help bring her home.
It's a good family.
People amaze me. You and I talk about a lot of bad people, right? On TCAT, sometimes on Unsolved as well, as we dive into potential suspects, persons of interest. I still maintain that the overwhelming percentage of people around the world are unbelievably good. I truly believe that. This is just one example.
A good example.
At the time of her disappearance, Sofia was around 3 feet tall. She only weighed 33 pounds, Gibbs, and she was missing her 4 upper front teeth. I mean, I say she only weighed 33 pounds, but she's only 4 years old.
Exactly.
It just shows you what a little
Yeah.
person she was. She has black hair and brown eyes with a mole under one eye and a birthmark on her lower back. Sofia was last seen wearing blue overalls, a red long sleeve shirt, violet socks, white Converse sneakers, and gold hoop earrings. If Sofia is alive today, and we've already said some police believe she is, or could be, she would be 24 years old. If you have any information on the disappearance of Sofia, including information about a person and van seen in the area of South Washington Street near East 15th Avenue between 8 and 9:15 p.m. on February 4th, 2003, you can contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, Special Investigator Al Wayner at 509-582-1331, or the Kennewick Police Department at 509-585-4208. You can also submit tips online at gotokennewick.com, where you can follow the links to make a report.
Well, you can't make it any easier than that.
No. I mean, there's a lot of ways for people to tell someone what they know.
And if you know something, it's the time to do it.
It is. And, I also want to say, you may not know exactly what happened. You may not even know who a person is that you saw on the street. You may think it has nothing to do with the case.
Right.
But if you were around that area and you saw anything, why not just call it in?
Absolutely, man. What if that was your kid? What if that was your daughter? If that was your sister?
You would want somebody to call it in, even if it was the smallest detail. I think what people have to be very careful of is assuming that police know X.
Exactly.
There's no need for me to call because I'm sure police already know this. They may not.
Hey, look, no detail's too small, man.
Yeah, I think, we say it all the time, but I also think it's important to hammer it home. Because I've been in situations, not in situations like this, but where I thought, I don't need to call this person. Even like in a job, I don't need to let this person know. I'm sure they already know.
Right.
Well, it comes out later they didn't know. they would have loved for me to have informed them of whatever it is, whatever knowledge I had. The police are not going to get upset. They're not going to be put off by getting a tip. They'll look at it. If they have it, great. If they've already checked it out, no need to check it out again. That's it, Gibbs, for our episode on the disappearance of Sofia Juarez. You know, you and I do so many unsolved cases, and some have been solved.
Yeah.
Not through anything we've done, but they've been solved.
Sure
and
have.
That's awesome. We'd love to see them all solved.
We do.
I do think that, you know, the technology, as it keeps advancing, we're just going to see more and more of these solved. The majority of them are not going to bring back lost loved ones, probably, or anything like that. But just the family knowing, finally knowing what really happened, that has to be huge for them. Okay. And on top of that, people need to pay. You know, people have been living their lives for many, many years, and it's time for them to pay for what they've done. So I think both of those things are important.
Yeah, it's nice to know justice is on its way.
Yeah. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. I am a binger. I've been listening for a while now, and I've got through all the way through TCAT, and then I started Unsolved, and I love those too. But on the Unsolved, I noticed I used to listen to a lot of different true crime podcasts, and once I found y'all's, you know, I've never looked back. But I've noticed lately that a lot of the older cases, well, they're not terribly old, on your Unsolved have been covered by some of the podcasts that I used to listen to. I can tell you right now, for a fact, y'all do so much more research, and you just paint such a better picture of the case. I know everybody always says thank you for the research. I'm going to say that too. Thank you so much for all you do. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Gibbs, I can't overstate what something like that means to us, those types of words. We do try very hard on the research. Are we going to miss things? Sure. Nobody can ever get everything right, but we strive.
We do.
We work hard to try to make sure that the research is as thorough as we can make it.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm one of your listeners. I live in Evansville, Indiana, which is right on the border with Henderson, Kentucky. I just wanted to give you guys a call. I was listening to episode 163 or 4, I can't remember. It's about a guy who is from North Carolina, Winston-Salem area. That's where I was born and grew up, so I just, listening to it, I thought of that. I am originally from there. I was born there and lived the first half of my life in Winston-Salem, so it just kind of hit home listening to that specific episode. But I've been listening for about 2 years now. I work in lawn care, so it's nice. I can just put my headphones in while I'm working and listen to all the episodes. I started with True Crime Unsolved and listened all the way through that, and then now I started with True Crime All the Time, and I'm working my way through that, and I'm about in the 160s right now. So anyway, thank you guys for what you do. I really enjoy it, and stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Wow, thank you very much.
That's awesome.
I don't think there's any doubt, Gibbs. I hear it from a lot of people. When you hear a case that is close to home or someplace that you have lived at some point in your life,
right,
it hits differently.
It does.
You know, we've said that about cases we've done here around our hometown. It just hits differently because you know that bar, you know that street, you know that area.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, it's Gino again from Logan, Ohio. It is a Pace Picante sauce commercial with the cowboys sitting out in the woods, and then one guy says something about getting his sauce from New York City. That's what it is. Have a good day, guys.
New York City.
New York City. I remember, I don't know what episode we talked about that. If I remember, and those ran for a number of years.
They did.
But I think at one point, one of the cowboys was one of the cowboys from Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but I don't know what episode that was in, but yeah, those were pretty famous commercials.
They really were.
I'm sure we couldn't remember. I'm sure you couldn't remember something about it.
Hi, this is Colleen from Anaheim, California. I'm calling to let you know that I was just listening to one of the episodes. I think it was the T-Cat maybe. Anyways, it was with the guy who was wearing the burlap sack over his face. Totally creepy. And I have to agree with the Gibster. That is way creepier than the Michael Killer Myers guy. And just want to let you know that I really enjoyed listening to you guys. So thank you very much. TYOTT. Hi, Colleen again. Sorry, that was a KYOTT. Have a good day. Bye.
So talking about the Phantom Killer.
Is that the Texarkana?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on Unsolved, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember that case. If you see the pictures, it is scary.
It really is.
To think about, and there's not pictures, but there's whatever drawings of what this thing would have looked like. To think about seeing that in your window, yeah, pretty scary. Although, if I see Michael Myers, I'm going to need some new underwear too. So
that's true.
I don't know how you kind of measure those two against each other.
Can you say their acronyms?
Did you just say acronyms?
Is that what I said?
I don't know what you said. You don't know what you said. You just asked me what you said. Can I say what acronyms? Now you're snorting. What acronyms?
I don't know.
KYOTT?
Yeah.
Keep your own time ticking.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think on that, we got to get out.
You better.
So that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking. KYOTT.
Watch Yellowstone for free on Pluto TV. All this weekend, Pluto TV is streaming a marathon of seasons 1 to 3 of Yellowstone, the show The Wrap calls a smash hit series. Pluto TV also has hundreds of channels and thousands of movies and TV shows like Mission Impossible 3, Gladiator, CSI, and more. Absolutely free. So download the free Pluto TV streaming app and watch Yellowstone seasons 1 to 3 free.
How much is your time worth? Whether you're a realtor, lawyer, accountant, or even a content creator, Stamps.com gives you the chance to focus your time on what you do best. Don't waste your time mailing letters or shipping packages. Stamps is there to help. Print stamps, shipping labels, or certified mail forms in seconds. Get up to 89% off USPS, UPS, and other carriers, and schedule free package pickups all from one place. Stamps.com also makes it easy to track shipments, manage contacts, and report on how much you send and spend. Over the last 28 years, more than 4 million customers have relied on Stamps.com to make their lives easier. Don't waste time worrying about being a postage expert or standing in line to drop off letters and packages. Let Stamps.com do what they do best so you can do what you do better. Go to Stamps.com/audio to sign up for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/audio.